Carolyn Dube here. What's the play for today? Well, today it's all about Sparks of Art-spiration. What are those? Well, they are free downloads that come every week in my newsletter. And what they are is a colorful printout of art play that you can use as a place for you to jump off and get started playing. Now, I'm going to show you in this video how this came about from one of those Sparks of Art-spiration. And you bet you can get the same one sent to you. There'll be a link down below. Put your email in and it'll show up right in your inbox. And that will also get you signed up for my newsletter so that you'll have a fresh spark each and every week. This is a gel print that I made that I turned into a Spark of Art-spiration. Now in this gel print, in the middle, in the yellow, I see a big flower. I mean a really big flower right in the middle of the page. So what I'm going to do is trace around that flower. Now you can use anything that you want to do it. Pen, crayon, marker, paintbrush, whatever you've got, whatever you like, that's what I recommend you use. Now what I'm using there is gouache. It's acrylic gouache from Liquitex, and I like it because of the nozzle. I can use it kind of like a pen, but it's really paint that's coming out of that. Now a flower this big needs something to support it. I don't want it just floating in the air, so I'm going to put a big stem on it. As I put one line on it for the stem, it didn't feel like quite enough, so I gave it a nice big wide stem. After all, this is a huge flower. I decided that this flower needed a little bit of grass down here, and I love the bright purple that's in that, so I'm going to outline some big blades of grass here. Now between you and me, these don't look like blades of grass to me. It looks like either shark fins or mountains that I'm creating, but definitely not blades of grass. I'm going to paint over the background, and that's really going to make the flower stand out. But as I was doing it, there was a mistake, an error in judgment, a critical thing that went wrong. And that is, look at that top left petal. It's just, well, it just looks like it's not painted correctly. But really, it's not a mistake. It's an oops. It's an outstanding opportunity presenting suddenly. And you're going to see how that mistake there was actually an opportunity that's going to show up at the end of this. Next time that you're playing, if things don't go according to plan, or if something feels like it was a mistake, try saying oops and seeing how that shifts things for you. When I looked at this spark, what I saw in it was the flower. That was my jumping off point for the play. But when you look at it, you might see something completely different. And on different days, I see different things in it. It's almost like when you used to look up at the clouds as a kid and see different shapes in them. It's that same kind of thing, but instead doing it with some art. The flower's looking good to me, but it needs just a little something more in the center. And I'm going to turn to the grass that's either shark fins or mountains, and I'm going to use that for inspiration. I'm going to put some of that bright magenta, neon, purple, violet color, whatever they call it, and I'm also going to add some water to it. And with gouache, when you add water to it, it still retains its vibrancy, its color, but it behaves more like a watercolor, so it becomes very translucent. So when I put some of that in the middle, it's going to add some color, but I'm still going to be able to see what's underneath it. Now, if I'd waited until everything was completely dry, I wouldn't have to be quite so careful not to hit the white. But I'm going to live on the edge, and I'm not going to wait for everything to dry. I felt like I had a little too much purple there, so I just blotted a little of it off with a tissue, and now I'm really happy with the inside of that flower. So the grass that I did was really an oops. It's an outstanding opportunity presenting suddenly. I'm not in love with it, and so what I'm going to do is add just a little touch of color, just faint little lines of it along the edge to see if that makes me like it a little bit more. Of course, by putting the teal on there, that makes me think of ocean colors, so those are definitely looking like shark fins to me. So maybe this is a surrealist piece of art where I've got a big flower growing out of the purple magenta ocean that has all sorts of sharks swimming around it. Am I the only one seeing shark fins in this? Let me know in the comments what you see inside this purple grass. So remember that wonky flower petal near the top? Well, I need to cover that up, and so I decided to put a word on top of it. But I'm not a big fan of my ability to keep letters even or spaced, and I'm really not willing to spend a lot of work actually measuring things out, so I use a stencil to help me do it. Now this one's called Open-Ended, and it's one I created for StencilGirl Products, and what I'm doing is putting the letters on there and taking a mechanical pencil, or a pencil that has a really sharp point to it, and I'm just tracing the letters. You'll notice that I'm holding the stencil kind of up, not letting it touch everything. Well, that's because not all the paint's dry on there. So I'm trying to keep myself from smearing any of the wet paint by putting the stencil on top of it. Now another option is to actually wait for things to dry, but that's just crazy talk, so I'm not going to do that. And I'm just going to keep tracing the letters here. So why did I do this word backwards? Why did I start with the last letter and then work over to the first one? Because I knew about where I wanted this to fit and I knew where I wanted it to end. So that's why I started with the end letter first, because that would help me get the spacing of it without actually having to do any real work to figure out the spacing. The toughest part for me was actually making sure I spelled it correctly when I'm spelling backwards. And did you see what I was touching there? That teal paint? Yup, that's an oops that happened right there. A little bit of the paint from on my shark fin grass, that transferred up there. And guess what? By seeing that there and realizing, okay, I've got a bunch of it on there, I'm going to have to use some more teal, I decided that's the color that I want to do the word play in. Here's another trick for you. When you're painting in letters like this, if you use a paintbrush that's about as wide as the letters, it makes it really easy to get those filled in. Now remember that you can get this Spark of Art-spiration emailed directly to you at the link down below. And not only that will you get this one, but once you're signed up for my newsletter, you'll get a new one every week for your play. But there is a catch with these. When I put a new Spark out in my newsletter, because of website server space and that kind of thing, they're only up and available for about a week. So make sure that you keep an eye out for that weekly newsletter so that you can get that Spark downloaded and onto your hard drive. That way you can use it whenever you want. Since this is something that you print out at home on your own printer, inkjet, laser, whatever kind of printer you've got, that means you have a lot of options for how to use these. Could you tear them up and use them in collage? Absolutely. Can you do art journaling with them, kind of like what I've done here? Absolutely. Can you fold them and turn them into things like gift card holders? Yes, indeed you can. It becomes a colorful piece of paper that you can use however it fits you in your personal play. For this last thing that I'm going to do, this is a do as I say, not as I do. As I touch the paint there, it's still a little bit wet, and I should let it dry completely before I put a pen on it. But I'm just not feeling that patient, so I'm going to live on the edge. I'm going to put that pen at risk here, and I'm going to trace around the letters. And occasionally I do have to do things like pull some of the paint off of the tip of the pen. Putting a word on here wasn't in my original plan for this. But because of that oops with the petal and that I had to cover it up, I had to get something up there to cover it, and that's what led me to the play. And that's one of those cases where an oops really is an opportunity. Even if it doesn't feel like it in the moment, an opportunity will reveal itself at some point. So at any point when you're playing, if you find things don't go according to plan, try saying oops and seeing what happens. Well, thanks so much for joining me for today's play. If you've been enjoying this video, I'd so appreciate it if you gave it a thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more of my videos, hit that subscribe button. That way you'll know as soon as my next one's out. Thanks so much for letting me be a part of your colorful journey.